The same great sports talk?
I'm seeing it right now.
Wrong.
Wrong again?
Wrong.
It's better.
There are so many great things going on in sports.
We gotta get it. We gotta get it. From our mics
Test.
to your ears.
The latest update we got is
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
All right, 24 minutes. See, I'm not a real genius when it comes to looking at the clock. 24 minutes before 10 o'clock. That was a great way to segue to our next guest. Huh? Have you ever thought, like when you're watching a TV show, for example, and somebody will introduce a stand-up comic and say, he's a comic genius. He's a comic genius, right? Mm-hmm. And I mean, typically when you think of the word genius, you think of people like Einstein, for example, right? Or I don't know, any of the scientists that have contributed to us. But you know, the founding fathers of this country, political geniuses, I guess you could argue that real easily. I'm sure we've had our share of military geniuses. I'm sure there are geniuses on both sides of the fight for good and bad. You know what I mean? The good and evil, and East versus West or whatever. And it is interesting how the discoveries of those people who do have that thinking capacity a little bit more than our own, or than the average person. I don't know. Maybe you are a genius. I think our next guest is a genius, though. And here's why I say this. First of all, I know some of his background, so I know that part. But also the idea that he took this whole notion of ingenuity, genius. What is the word that I'm looking for? Genius? Whatever it is. He took this whole notion and explored it from not just the perspective of inventing things, you know, to make life better or to communicate easier, that kind of thing, but also to actually influence us and how we behave and the laws that we live by. And he wrapped it all into a novel. And the novel is, of course, called Geniuses. Neil W. Flanzraich is who I'm speaking about. I'm probably mispronouncing his name. He is the CEO and chairman of Cantex Pharmaceuticals, which is a biotechnology company that develops drugs to treat cancer. Now, that's a genius right there. On the board, he's also on the board of directors for Chipotle Mexican Grill. Gosh, if he's going to tell us that Mexican food cures cancer, I'm in.
Yeah, me too.
He's an attorney. He's an expert in residence in the entrepreneurship program of the Harvard Business School and Harvard Law School. It says here he's a storyteller, and I didn't need to see it on my notes to know that because the book tells the story. The book, again, is called Geniuses. Neil W. Flanzraich. Neil, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Larry. I'm fine. How are you?
I'm okay. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Coral Gables, just south of Miami.
Oh, well, thank you for calling. And am I saying your name correctly?
Flanzraich. It's just two syllables.
Flanzraich.
You said it fine.
Okay. Well, thank you for being on the air. It is an interesting word because first of all, we use it incorrectly a lot, but that doesn't mean it's not used with good intent. Like when we call a comedian a genius, in a way he is or she is, because she's coming up with some bits of comedy that the rest of us may not have come up with. But isn't genius a measurable thing?
Yeah, well, there are different definitions, Larry. Some people use, just as you say, measures. So they set an arbitrary scale of IQs where arbitrarily they said 100 is average. So 15, 20 points above or below it is more or less considered average. But people have IQs over 140 or over 160 are thought to be geniuses, but the people who you were mentioning, like Einstein or Newton, they probably have IQs of about 200. But I actually happen to agree with you. You can be a genius of comedy. I'm sure that some of the great comedians that we all laugh very hard at are actually brilliant people. Some people think you have to do it in math and science, or you have to do it in everything. Like Leonardo da Vinci was a great artist as well as a scientist. But So that definition is out there. I use it to myself. I think I accept the one that generally says it's someone who uses intelligence to shape their time and place to basically bring change to our society and our civilization. It can be a comedian if it changes the way we laugh and look at life. It could be a religious leader. It could be, as you said, a leader, a military leader, Alexander the Great, Genghis Khan. They certainly were. But there were good ones who were trying to use it in a way that we all, society, benefit. There are evil ones. And,
Yeah, Neil, I don't want to get stuck too much on the definition of genius because you have an ingenious idea to write a story around this whole thing, and you've got geniuses that are 1,000 IQ, so I want to find out about these people. But before we do that, I just want to real quickly mention this, and maybe this is kind of an observational thing that is comic in a sense. But you know when you hear an ad for a company, let's say they've got five lawyers on board, and the 5 lawyers have each got 10 years of experience, and they will say, we've got 50 years of combined experience.
Yeah.
I will always say, if I had 106-month-old babies,
Yeah.
and I'm going to tell you that this team of 106 months old can teach me English because they've been studying English for a total of, what would 100 times 6 months be, Robin? 50 years.
Yeah, 50 years.
They've been studying English for 50 years. They can help me with English. I don't think they could help me.
No, I always say, and we hear about it in big law firms, big banks, big accounting firms, if you hire a company to provide you with a service, the service you get is only as good as the individual who's working with you.
That's
that
right.
Person meets your needs. If that person does it, that's great. But the fact that they have a big name and 10,000 people working for them doesn't do much for you.
Well, and just to finish my thought on this, the only reason I say that is because when you talk about individuals that have IQs of 1,000, I was thinking, well, an organization might say we have a combined IQ of over 1,000.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you could, depending on how many people, they might not be very smart. But also, one of the things that I'm often say is intelligence, great intelligence, doesn't bring with it common sense. What you really want when you're hiring someone or wanting advice, yes, you want the IQs are great for potential coming up with new creative ideas, but you want somebody with good judgment, somebody who's got his feet on the ground, understands the real world. A lot of intelligence are very good theoretical things, but I'm not so. IQ alone doesn't do it. It's common sense, it's hard work, perseverance, creativity, also values. If you have a great IQ and you have no ethical standards, you're an amoral, evil person, those people are no good for anything. They're dangerous. So I always say intelligence alone is not enough. And the people who get things done and really help our world are people with values and people who work hard and use their ability constructively.
And you are one of those people. I love in your bio how the story came about. You're such a loving dad, and you were telling stories to your child.
Oh, I have 2 sons now. They're both in their 20s. But one of them founded his own internet company, and another one is a banker. And I'm very proud of them. I think they're geniuses. But when they were little, I used to tell them every night we'd always have dinner. I always think it's important for the family to get together and have meals together. No matter how busy I was always was home for dinner. And I would tell them stories. And after a while, you read all the books and the fairy tale books, and then they want more. And I began making up stories about imaginary animals. I won't bore you with the detail, and every night, and they believed it. When they were very little, they believed that this imaginary animal existed, and they would expect me to tell them a story.
Oh, wow,
night.
that's cool.
Well, after a while, I was really stretching my imagination because you'd make up one story and another, what did this, I called him the woollymonger, what did the woollymonger do today? And I have to make up another.
Oh, wow.
So it was a lot of fun, and I got into the pattern of telling stories to them. And they, well, for a long time, believed they were real, but at some point they understood that it was an exercise in creativity, and I encouraged them to use their own creativity and tell me stories. That's how I progressed from telling them stories to asking them to stretch their imagination.
Our guest is Neil W. Flanzraich. Our interview is very interesting, and here's how I can tell you that, because I didn't realize 15 minutes had passed already. So we need to take a little break, and we'll be right back. The book is called Geniuses, and we'll talk more about it when we come back. You're listening to The Source, WOCA Ocala. We'll be right back.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. For today, some sunshine mixing with clouds. Watch out for a thunderstorm during the afternoon and evening hours. The high 88 to 92. Partly cloudy overnight, low 72 to 76. Times of clouds and sun tomorrow with a shower and thunderstorm or two around in the afternoon. The high 88 to 92. And for Saturday, clouds and some sun with a couple of thunderstorms mainly in the afternoon. The high 90 to 94. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
Here's what you may have missed on the John Tesh Radio Show.
Over 40% of women surveyed will check out your LinkedIn to see how you're doing job-wise. But stuffing your anger down isn't the answer either. In fact, that makes blood pressure skyrocket even more than screaming. Instead, go for a run. The latest coverage options are heavy-duty, designed to conceal even the biggest and baddest tattoos while still looking natural.
Intelligence for your life on the John Tesh Radio Show. Don't miss this stuff.
If you've been hearing about the crowded Eaton's Beach Sandbar and Grill and were worried because you couldn't get in, I've got some good news for you. Seating is now available. While you're there, look up Chef Dave Del Rio. He'll buy you a drink. Now is the time for you to finally see firsthand what your friends are talking about. At Eaton's Beach Sandbar and Grill, try Chef Dave's tantalizing Louisiana menu. Check out those gorgeous Lake Weir sunsets. Eaton's Beach Sandbar and Grill on beautiful Lake Weir. Seating now available.
All right, 12 minutes, I guess, before. I'm reading the clock wrong. I'm having a hard time with the clock today. 13 minutes. 13 minutes. There it is. Okay. I'm reading backwards is what it is. 13 minutes before 10 o'clock. All right, I want to bring up Gilligan's Island. Let me explain why I'm bringing up Gilligan's Island. Neil, good morning, and thank you for waiting through the break. On Gilligan's Island, this was a microcosm of the whole world. And there was only one man on that whole island that would be considered a genius, and that was the professor. Hopefully you remember the show, right?
Vaguely. It's been a long time, but I remember.
All right.
Sure.
So they're on the island, and you got a couple of, four guys. One's rich, one's a captain, one's Anyway, so the professor is the guy. Now, here's why I'm bringing this up, is because the other stranded people on the island are always looking to the professor for the solution to their problems, rather than looking inwardly at their own genius as to how to fix things. And I think that kind of represents the whole humanity. Mm-hmm. Because if I didn't have a car, I would never invent one. So I had to have somebody else invent a car. And I'm wondering something, because your book actually has me thinking this, that if genius is measurable, and if it's measurable, then you could probably teach a computer to become a genius to the level of the people in your book, the 1000s.
Well, the whole area of artificial intelligence and designing computers, it's very difficult. I don't think there's going to be, I know they created a computer that could play chess and very well, but I think it'll be a long time before we'll see machines that have the creativity that people have. I know a lot of very credible, intelligent people do worry about it, actually, that one day the machines will take over the world, take over us. I frankly don't buy that. I think that's a misunderstanding of raw brain power. Let me just use your example. You said the genius that you couldn't build a car. I couldn't build a jet engine or something. But okay, the people who originally designed it or designed the pyramids, they were brilliant, they were geniuses. The average intelligent can't do that. But who built the pyramids? That one person didn't build anything. Who builds the cars? Nothing happens unless you have everybody using their potential to the fullest. That's how society advances. So yes, we all play a role, but I never get into this comparison. If a person, when my children, going back to the story about my children, were in school and they came back and they had an exam, I never asked them what grade they got, because maybe they did well, maybe they didn't. But I said, did you do your best If they said they did, I said, then I'm proud of you.
Absolutely.
If you didn't, if the answer was no, I didn't really study, I was up late the night before, then I said, well, okay, then you have to ask yourself why. And
well, that's a love. That's a love genius. You're a love genius.
Yeah.
And I only brought it up because you said something earlier that really also is genius, or is a genius in action. You were making up the stories for your children. You were stretching your imagination. That's your words. You were and literally probably exercising your brain in the process. And,
oh, absolutely.
And I don't know that a computer, no matter what number it might represent, would ever have creative thoughts or equality thoughts. I don't think computers would say, you know what, we should treat each other a little kinder. You know?
Yeah, they don't have values. I actually agree with you. It's this worry that the computers will take us over. It's completely misdirected. I'll give you a little bit in line with what you were saying. Years ago, in one of my first pharmaceutical companies, I wasn't very happy with the ideas coming out of it. I didn't see a lot of creativity. They were very smart people, hardworking. So one day I got all of my group together in a big one of our bigger rooms, and I brought in a local artist, a man who was a painter. And I said, I'd like everybody to listen. We're going to ask this local artist who I introduced to explain to us how he gets in the mood to be creative before he starts painting. I'm not going to make you all painters. I'm not asking you how to paint. But what do you do to be creative? And everybody, the attitude was, how silly, I'm wasting my time. What is this foolishness? But went through it. They listened. I asked them to pay attention, ask questions. I have to tell you that when it was over, first of all, they said they got something out of it, but I saw significantly increased creativity. Creativity, we can all stretch it. We don't have to be Einstein. We can all become a little more creative. So when I was telling stories to my children, it was exercising my mind, exercising creativity. We should encourage children and people to be more creative.
Oh,
One of the reasons I wrote this book. By writing that book, it makes me more creative in everything I do, in business and in life.
Right. Can you imagine this? If somebody who is living a life of poverty and they don't see any way out, but instead of looking outward, they look inward, and they sit down at a word processor or a computer or whatever, and they start typing, once upon a time there was a man who had no money. He lived, and they keep writing the story, and they take this character, and they have this character do things that'll take them out of poverty, and then they realize, wow, I'm writing my own map for my own self to get out of poverty.
What a great... You could write a novel just about that, but I think it's inspirational. And yes, by encouraging people to be creative, what seemed like they were confined, the limits of their economic position or the environment they live in, if you stretch your own creativity, you can find ways out of that environment. I think it's a wonderful image you just created.
But sometimes when people have a lot of intelligence and they do amazing things, like win the Nobel Peace Prize, things like that, sometimes their common sense wanes, and that could be a detriment.
Oh, yeah. I mean, remember that being a genius doesn't mean you can't be a fool. If it goes to your head and you begin thinking you're important and you're a big deal, that's probably the beginning of the end for anybody.
What a fun conversation. You know what I don't want to have happen? I don't want in 7 minutes to say goodbye and say, oops, we didn't talk about the book. So we need the listeners are voracious readers. The listeners love reading books, and this is a really good one. And if our conversation so far hasn't been fair to the book, it has been fair to the author, because I think we've demonstrated with this dialogue the deep thinking man that we're talking to. And so let's get Neil, if you wouldn't mind, give the audience like a movie trailer version of the story that you've written here.
Well, thank you, Larry. My book is, as you said before, it's a sci-fi fantasy about a small group of people, maybe a total of 500 in the world, who have IQs of over 1,000. And this means not only they're brilliant, but they have these mental powers of telepathy, mind control, telekinesis. They can move things with their mind. They can levitate. They can see the future, all kinds of mental abilities. They live among us, outwardly normal, but they conceal these extraordinary abilities. Some of them are good. some are evil. The evil ones want to use their great intelligence to dominate ordinary people. The good geniuses, and I use genius with a capital G, want to help the ordinary people so they can have their own lives that control their own destiny. And this conflict creates this romance, adventure. And I use their conflict to explain a lot of history. So if you like interesting explanations of why we had this war or why this happened, for example, they were inspiring the building of the pyramids, or they were on both sides of World War II. But if you want to know more about it, you can go buy my book. Is one word titled Geniuses, and it's available on Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com, and or you can go to my website, which is the book on geniuses. .wordpress.com. The book on geniuses, written as one word, .wordpress.com. That's my website. I have on it, by the way, a list of people, about a little more than 30 people that I think were great geniuses who advanced our society and our civilizations in all the different ways you mentioned, as military leaders, government leaders, as well as, of course, scientists and physicians.
Yeah. You know, I think we say this all the time, and forgive me if it infringes on your personal beliefs, but we always say God is a genius. The other day we went down to this place. You're in Florida, so you probably know about the mangroves. Is that what they call
sure,
mangroves? And the gardening lady who comes on Tuesdays will always say that salt water will kill plants, and of course there's plenty of plants in the ocean, but the mangroves are this interesting plant that they actually take salt water and make it into fresh water somehow.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And you realize that God is a genius, you know, and in that way, also, if you think about the fact that Germany had Einstein, but we got him.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if that makes any sense to anybody, but it's interesting how.
Well, look at Werner von Braun, who was making these rockets of war for Hitler, but when he came to America, he made the rockets that went to the moon. If you create the right environment, then you can turn genius for good things. By the way, I certainly agree with you. And whether we talk about divinity or not, I think among the greatest geniuses of all time who advanced civilization are the different religious leaders. So Jesus, Moses, Muhammad, Confucius, all of those men were undoubtedly, during whatever human form versus divine form, if you believe in them, but they were clearly, by any definition.
Absolutely. I'm not having a religious discussion with you, but I often will say to somebody who says, I don't believe in Jesus, I will ask, well, which part? What thing did he say that you don't believe in?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't.
If we live by Jesus' principles, the world would be a much better place. It's when people don't that we get in trouble.
Yeah. Gosh, we've connected. This is a good conversation.
Are any characters in your book patterned after your children? Have you taken any of them?
I actually think not. The characters, the heroes. I mean, I think the people who use their intelligence for good are basically very much influenced by I think both my sons are really geniuses. Also, by the way, my wife. So I have women, powerful women.
Now, that was a genius thing to say. Make sure you say your wife is a genius.
But you'll see in my book that there are very powerful, intelligent, brilliant, genius women.
Yes.
Women are clearly as smart as men. That's one of the things that people lose who actually have gender problems. They miss the point. In fact, in my career, and I've hired many people, I've hired more women for the job than men. And when people ask me, how come you have so many women working here or there? I say, because they were the best candidates. They were so good. How could I not hire them?
There you go.
But clearly there are, wonderful. And in both my book and the sequel, which I'm now writing, Geniuses too, the women play a very prominent role. And my wife really is a genius. It was not just clever of me to say that. She
funny.
Really is.
So you know what troubles me, and it's the idea that you could have a genius come up with a cure for a disease like cancer, like some of the stuff you've worked with, and then you have a genius in finances who says, wait a minute, we're not going to give this away. We're going to make $1 gazillion off of this. And somehow the discovery of the cure for cancer is kind of bottled up a little bit and inaccessible.
But I'll tell you how to reconcile that. That's a very good challenge. And by the way, most of the big companies today, biotech companies, if people can't afford their medicine, they give it away free. But do they charge people, or in the health care plans they can? But the reason is, until somebody comes up with a better motivational thing, our system of capitalism, whether it's us or now they're doing it in China and Russia also, it's very motivating. So if tomorrow you said they couldn't charge a high price for new drugs, we wouldn't get a new drug for cancer. We wouldn't get a new drug for Alzheimer's. What's motivating all these companies out there searching right now is the dream. And by the way, most of the time it doesn't happen. Only 1 in 10,000 new drugs ever gets approved, and only 1 in 3 approved drugs ever recovers its development costs. So it's a real long shot. And the only reason people hope for and work hard is they think that if that one happens, that miraculous shot at it, then they want to be able to charge a high price. So right now, that's our system. If we could come up with a better way to motivate scientists to work for 15 years on these very hard things to do, very small chance of success things, because if tomorrow you took away the money out of drugs development, everybody go into real estate or something. They wouldn't do it.
Right. Neil, what a great conversation. The book is called Geniuses. Look up Neil's website that he told you about earlier, thebookongeniuses.wordpress.com. And Neil, definitely come back with the next book.
Thank you. I look forward to it. Thank you for your great interview.
Great conversation. We'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Oh, well then don't let your business slow down or shut down because you lost your computer files. Get Carbonite and your files will be backed up to the cloud automatically. No matter how many computers, servers, or external drives you have, Carbonite has an affordable plan. Start a free trial today at Carbonite.com. No credit card required. Use offer code BACKITUP and get 2 free bonus months with purchase. Carbonite.com. Offer code BACKITUP.
Performance Bicycle, where great rides begin, has created an event so big, there's only one way to say it. Everything's on sale. Now through Sunday, everything's on sale at performancebike.com. Over 10,000